Hello and welcome to this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. If you've not seen or heard the show before, this is the show where you get to share songs, soundtracks, theme tunes, music in your life that have stories that are interspersed with people, moments, events that have happened in your life. Because I believe that everybody's got stories to tell when it comes to music, interspersed with those key special moments that whenever we hear the song today, we instantly think back to that story or that person or that moment. My guest on this week's show is the brilliant Joie Costa. She's an applied energetic philosopher. And as usual, the show went into many different threads. But Joie is a great storyteller that will keep you enwrapped in what she's got to say. And I won't give it away now, a nice couple of surprises along the way. So without further ado, hope you enjoy the show. Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to this edition of Soundtrack of Your Life. If you've not heard the show before, this is the show where I get guests on the show to talk about the stories, events, emotions, etc. in their life that link to songs, soundtracks, theme tunes, whatever they may be. Because I believe we've all got stories to tell when it comes to music in our lives. My guest on this week's show is the great Joie Costa. Joie, if you'd just like to say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Joie Costa. I'm me.
You are indeed.
I don't know. I'm a lot of things and a little person. But mostly I am the creator of an applied energetic philosophy called Presence Manifest. And I am also a lyricist.
Awesome. I think why don't we actually start with that? Where did your love of lyrics or ability or inspiration stem from?
Oh my goodness. So I've been writing songs probably since I was like in third grade.
Okay.
And I've always been awkward. And as soon as I discovered that I could translate what was in my head into this poetry or into this shareable form, it became my predominant way of actually sharing my feelings. So I had a tendency to hyper focus and just fixate on the one or two things that I really liked, in conversation. So I was never really a great conversationalist as a kid. And songwriting was the way that I connected with people in general. Like I would bring my poems to school in third grade or fourth grade and I'd share them. And it was around sort of the birth of what would now be old school hip hop, but it was beginning then. And so I would bring in these rhymes and it was really the one solid way that I could connect to people in my class, because other than that, I was completely socially, conversationally lost, like just lost. So it was a lifesaver for me, reading that I could put things in rhyme and meter, and somehow I would be able to connect with my classmates or my peers on a level that was unknown before I began making it. Before I began making rhymes, I just felt really like included, but completely alienated. Right, as a kid.
Okay.
So
do you remember like what some of your early pieces were about? I mean, you mentioned that you seem to hone in on certain aspects of a conversation. and it gave you a sense of connection to others, also retaining that sense of individuality yourself. But like, do you remember what your early examples were about when you started to share it with people?
Yeah. Actually, I almost got kicked out of school because I went to Catholic school,
All right.
and
Okay.
and I grew up in the Bronx, right? So I was writing about all the things that I was seeing, like
Okay.
my friends were 12, 13 years old, people were already getting pregnant, getting beat up, getting shot, getting into fist fights over guys and chains, and I mean it was the Bronx in the early 80s. So I was really just writing what I was seeing and what I couldn't personally relate to. I really always felt like I was an observer in my reality. Like I was just kind of out there, like this is the world, but I'm separate from it. So I was always writing as like, this is what's going down. And I was even then putting little, I don't know, like little presents or Buddhist type teachings or something like in my thing. It was
Okay.
like, you don't have to you don't have to go with that guy and end up pregnant and beat up by your friends. Like you could go sit under a tree and talk to a bird. Like, I mean, I was really just trying to make a connection with the world, like my world and the world that I was living in. And so they always had these good morals at the end. Like they always came together about, like, like, I'm sorry you had to leave me, but I'm sure we'll find the person you love someday. Or,
Okay.
don't get shot, don't get pregnant, like, don't be a racist.
Quite
But
clear
there was
lessons.
like cuss words in there. And I remember that my mom got called in one day because I was standing on like a lunch table and I was talking about teen pregnancy in like Catholic school in fifth grade or sixth grade or something like that. And my mom got called in because I was writing profanity, and it was like I was not addicted to it, but I was excited about it because I was doing something that other people could relate to and enjoyed, and I really felt connected. So I wasn't backing down. Like I was just sitting in the principal's office like, no, there's a moral in this. And like I'm actually teaching what you're saying to do in the Bible. And like, but I'm putting it in my language because I'm a fifth grader in the Bronx, yo.
Damn
Like
right. Damn right. Right.
the nuns just wanted to get me in trouble for cussing, and my mom came in and she read it, and she was just like, go back to class. Like she looked at the principal and she looked at me and she goes, go back to class. I'll take care of this.
Nice. Mum's on your side here.
and,
I've got this. You carry on. I've got this. Nice.
and then yeah, she's like, I got it. And then and that was it. Like I never heard anything from my principal again. Nothing. I went back to class. There was no nothing. Years later I was like, what did you say to her?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I explained to her like all the problems she could have, and that you weren't one of them. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right. Like that's cool, but I think that little validation was really key. Like, and it was like the first time I think I stood up for my words. Like I was like, no, I wrote something with meaning, and you're telling me it's bad, and it's not. So it was a pivotal moment that I really didn't even think about until you just asked me. But yeah.
Awesome.
Like,
So when you were
I started young.
no, that's what I think. Personally speaking, like we all started young from any experience that we've got. Right now, we might not have consciously realised at that point. Like you were quick to manifest that in writing, in connecting, in writing what's true to you, absorbing what you want, relaying it. I had something similar. I wasn't, a poet laureate at school by any means, but when it came to things like creative writing and poetry writing and that kind of thing, I just had a natural affiliation with it. You know, ideas came fairly readily to me. You know, if the teacher would say, "Oh, you know, look to write about, I don't know, a 3-4 page story," I'd be the nerd that would like write 40 pages. And people are like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "Well, look, the story went on and on." And you know, my teachers were like, "Okay, well, that's how you want to write. You're going to write." And but for a lot of people, I think, you know, they've tapped into that enjoyment when they were younger, whether it's music or writing or art or whatever. And then life gets in the way, life develops, and then you sort of lose that connection. So I'm curious, when you were writing, did you take on any style or
Yeah.
artist or band or anyone to incorporate into your writing, thinking, "Oh yeah, I want to write like so and so," or have a set of lyrics like so and so?
Well, I guess my earliest influencers were, you know, the mainstream, well, not mainstream, I mean, it was like our local radio, right? But I had just
Okay.
like LL Cool J and Salt and Pepper and Run DMC and um Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I mean, I would sit up like, I would sit up at Friday night and just wait, for like the Fat Boys, you know, like anyone, Slick Rick, all of them. I was just, you know, but also the morals and the ethics in my own writing and my own hip hop came from where my mom's influence was, which was more of like an outlaw country
Oh,
type,
okay.
uh like, I don't know, I was raised with like Charlie Daniels in the house, and um Kentucky Headhunters, and um I had this like really, my mom, I always call her like the urban cowboy. Like she was this little Irish woman from the Bronx, and in the house we only ever listened to country music, and maybe some Helen Reddy or Linda Ronstadt or some more like empowering type woman of the 70s type music. So my influence outside musically and writing was, hip hop and just that basic, four kind of Beastie Boys, kind of feeling. Um, but my understanding from the music that I grew up with was like, you have to sacrifice and you have to stand by your man and stand by your
Uh-huh.
woman and work hard and, pull up your bootstraps. And so, so there was always that in the background. Even Randy Travis, lots of Randy Travis and Dolly Parton and the Judds, and just, it was such a mishmash. And my father listened to AC/DC and Metallica and
Nice.
the Who and Cream and Yes. And I was going back and forth between their houses, and I was from the Bronx and my cousins were from Jersey, so they were listening to like Poison and Bon Jovi and White Snake. And so I was literally bounced around
I
from
was going to
like
say, quite the eclectic mix
musical
you've got
genre
going on there.
musical genre, and I was 100% just fascinated by storytelling in all of them. Like, I mean, I could just, whoever I was with, wherever I was listening to what was on, and I was like, yeah, it was probably 50% of my experience of wherever I was. It always had a soundtrack, right? And I could think back to different times and go, okay, yeah, Jersey, Jersey was MTV and Bon Jovi. New York was Salt and Pepper and Freestyle and Crush Groove, and my mom is country and my father is metal, and you know my first boyfriend from high school that ever listened to rock made me a mixtape, and that was completely, I had never heard anything like Tom Sawyer, right? Like, I played Tom Sawyer over probably 1,000 times on tape because I was like, what is that? What is that?
Do you remember
I
what
don't
was
know
on
what
the
that is.
mixtape? You know what was on it?
um it was, I think, Jethro Tull,
Okay.
And um oh, I'm really bad with band names and such. I just know it was a sound I hadn't heard, and I
Okay.
was like, "What? Oh, Motley Crue. Motley
All
Crue
right.
was on there." Like it was a very like eclectic thing. There was maybe even some Guns N' Roses was on there. Um, yeah, like it was like all his favorite songs, and I was like, "What is this? I don't even know what this is," because none of that was in my neighborhood. That was for
No.
sure. I had no idea
Did
what
you
that
ever find
was.
did you ever find out from him why they were his favourites? Why he picked those particular tracks? I mean, half it might be to impress you, but I don't know if he shared any other reason um, for his choices.
This is gonna sound absolutely awful, but
Okay, here we go.
I,
This is the bit I have to clip for the advert when I promote this. So okay, here we go.
I know it does. Like honestly, I think he was trying to. This is good. I don't know any other way to put this, but I think he was trying to like educate me as
Right.
a small or not as small as a how do I say this? He was trying to make me more white, I think.
I
Is
see.
so
Okay.
so like in my neighborhood, I was, I was raised in a pretty mixed eclectic neighborhood, but even in my high school, there was like a segregation. There was like the white kid from this other side of the neighborhood, right? And then there was like my neighborhood, right? And and he was on the other side, and I think he was feeding me music, like he was trying to feed me music to be like, hey, look, like I'm gonna educate you in how to be like a white teenager, basically, right? And because I think you're a little bit too hood. And it was
Brilliant.
very like Pygmalion. It was very Pygmalion. And I think he just picked songs that were like the top song or the most popular song of a whole slew of like what he thought white people should be listening to, right?
Okay.
Like, I know
And
it
what?
sounds awful, but like
No,
in
no, no.
hindsight,
It's
this
actually
is
an interest.
exactly this is why these songs were important to him. I
Well,
think.
no, but I'm interested in that. That you know, the reason was that, as you said, you're in separate neighborhoods, and I guess he's got that link formed in himself that like these kind of songs are what people like us should listen to, and he needs that kind of affirmation, the validation from someone else. That like, look, I like this. You seem similar to me. You know, the very basis of like skin color, what have you. You should listen to this. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay. I'm wondering then, what is the messaging in those kind of songs that would make someone sense that? And indeed, what do you think of them now, if you consider what they are now?
I just think they were. If I think back and I try to remember dancing and listening to them, because remember we didn't have anything to look up, right? So
No,
it's not
true.
like I could
Yeah.
be like, oh,
No
28
YouTube, no
other songs from
Spotify.
Guns
Yeah, yeah,
N'
yeah.
Roses, right? It was like, this is what I had, right? I had like one tape. I had one tape, and I didn't even have MTV in my house. Like cable was not a thing, right? Like
Uh
I had
huh.
to go to Jersey to watch MTV at my cousin's house. So music hadn't really crossed borders yet, really,
Mm.
as like 82 to 89, you pretty much listened to what was from your area and what you could glean off the radio or what somebody physically shared with you, right? There was no just
Yep.
going down rabbit holes like we can today. And but when I think about it and I think about all the music I've listened to in my life since then, it really just felt like a greatest hits of just rock, a little bit of like hair rock and a little bit of like kind of classic, you know, Jethro Tull and stuff like that. So, but in knowing the relationship I had with this person, It was 100% not even to connect with me. It was to change me so that I would be viable to date without getting crap from his friends. Like,
Oh, I
it
see.
was straight up, he was trying to educate me in a way that would make me kind of acceptable to
Right.
like that whole group of people, right? Because what he really had fun with and was like attracted to was the fact that I was like none of them, and that I was continually pumping out poetry and rhymes that had this like weird mixture of like life and morals and reality and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, he loved my poetry, but he would get shit for dating me if he was dating somebody who was dressing like my neighborhood, talking like my neighborhood, listening to the music that my neighborhood was listening to. He wanted me to be more
Right.
like his neighborhood so I would be more of an acceptable partner,
Ah,
right?
so okay. So
And
he's trying.
also so he could like sort of,
No, go on, carry on.
yeah, like save me and bring me up to some sort of level that he had in his head, right? Like, it was a very interesting relationship. It went on for 2 years, and there was way more than music. I mean, it was my speech, it was how I dressed. I mean, by the time we broke up, I was completely unrecognizable to anyone in my neighborhood.
Wow. So could you
Like,
feel that happening?
unrecognizable.
Could you feel that happening at the time that you could twig that, like, okay, I'm kind of getting that message that it's not necessarily acceptable who I am, or he wants me to be in a certain mold to fit in his world, network, sphere of influence, or whatever. Because as I say, it sounds like the music was a part of it, because it included other things like the way you dress, the way you speak, all this kind of thing. So it's interesting that he's using music as a medium to go,
Mhm.
okay, it's not necessarily about what the song might mean to me or to you. It's that we are a certain classification, gentrification, and therefore we should listen to this. Very interesting take.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. And for a long time, I think it's why I mostly stuck with hip hop freestyle and country, because I kind of associated like rock music or even hairband music or any of that stuff. I kind of associated that with somebody trying to change me and
Right,
somebody trying to
right.
make me into something that I wasn't. Um, and so that became sort of it wasn't a very liberating, like you would think rock and roll or rock in general is like the more liberating, right? And it just felt it wasn't for me, because I was just like I don't, this is this new world that I don't understand, and I'm supposed to understand, and I'm supposed to
Mm.
like, but it doesn't have like, sort of the drop and the thing that I needed, until that little like Run DMC Aerosmith thing
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
happened.
yeah.
You know?
The
then
collaborations, the
then
mismatches, and the
my two worlds collided.
exactly. Well, that's I think was the beauty back in those days, right? You mentioned Run DMC and Aerosmith. You had Queen and David Bowie, for example. You had all sorts of these collaborations where you wouldn't think, how did they go together? But they did. It was an artistic expression that all of a sudden people that weren't into that genre click into it, because they say it's half um, the band that they like with another band. So it's like, okay, they've come together and created something. But it's interesting that you noted that, like, first of all, you identified that rock wasn't that kind of. First of all, it was that kind of music that was used as a means to change you, which didn't resonate with you in the first place. But then also stylistically, you mentioned it doesn't have necessarily the drop or the beat or that kind of thing. And that's something I've seen too in my previous years, where I've probably been a bit of a music snob, and probably still am. Where, like, when I first found rock and roll, which is predominantly my choice or style of music, it's like, right, how many other people get what I get? So it's like trying to search those kindred spirits that get what I get. So first of all, it was like, right, the people
Uh-huh.
around me were predominantly into R&B, hip hop, Bollywood music a bit, and this was like probably formative years. So what, the late 90s, early 2000s. So every time I try and find
Mm-hmm.
someone that's like getting rock and roll or likes rock and roll, it was like they were very hard to find. And all of a sudden, it was like, why the hell can't I find anybody? I'm playing these songs, and people are going, "Oh, it's too loud," or "the guitars are too loud," or "I can't make any sense." And it's like, and you get annoyed, and then it'd be a slang match going, "Well, your music's just like I don't get it." It's just like, then you just go back and forth about that kind of thing. And as I've gone on, it's like, do you know what? This partly fuels why I've created this series. It's like people have these stories and ideas about whatever music they're into, and yeah, look, it doesn't mean now you have to like every piece of music out there. That's not necessarily the case. But it's like when you said that, like,
Mm-hmm.
when rock was used as and that kind of coercing manner, and even then, musically, it didn't necessarily click with you. I'm like, that's a really cool point that people, may have just had that link because I hear a lot of days people just go, "Oh, what? That's too loud, isn't it?" It's like, yeah, but for a start, it's kind of meant to be loud stylistically, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so
Right.
multi-layered and all this kind of thing. And so one of the drivers on my show is talking about the links from songs to emotions. So I was wondering if you could share like a couple of examples of emotions to stories or moments or people in your life, whatever they may be.
Well, there's always music involved, so every moment of my life has one of those, I think. And
Nice.
I did eventually love, every almost every genre of music. So I got over that aversion to rock. And I did honestly, I really loved, like, I just want to say I love rock and roll. Like, I love rock. But um I mean, it's just so interwoven. I can't even. I mean, I went to there was let me try to think of something that's like really okay. Here's a good one. So I was always writing about love, right?
Okay.
So even at 13, I was writing these like deep, like, oh, you were my everything, and now you like basically changed baseball teams, and I'm never going to see you again because you play in a different neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, literally, like, I really was at some point in my life, which I am sort of trying to get back. At some point in my life, I was extremely romantic, and
Okay.
I really believe the stories and the songs, right? And I really because they are somebody's stories and they are true, right? Like when you think about it, it's like those love songs that people wrote, they are those people's stories, and maybe some of them are actualized and maybe some of them are just fantasy. But either way, like, I was so love songs, and the more like, oh, the love song was, like, the better for me. Like, there was this song, oh, I don't know. I'm so bad with I mean, you would
You might
hate
have to
having an
sing a couple of
intellectual
lines,
musical conversation with me because I
It's alright, you
but
might
it's
have to
like,
sing a
like,
couple of
it's
lines.
the one that was like, I'm all cried out over you. It was like, uh, you know,
2 points for any
all these
listener who gets
tears
that.
will burn my pillow. Anyway, it was like this all cried out. I think it was it's called All Cried Out, but I don't know
Okay.
the person who sang it.
Okay.
But it was just like basically like, oh, I'm just all cried, like, like, I'm just gonna cry all. And I played that. I think I was like 13 or 14 and went through a breakup. I think I played that song about 1,000 times and just cried on my couch every single time for days. My mother wanted to kill me. She was like, "Oh my God, I get it. You're all cried out. Can you get all cried out and just stop?" Because like I was like, but so anyway, I went on to write all these love songs all the time. Every time I had a relationship, I was writing about how I felt about them before I got in a relationship. I didn't write as much when I was in them. And then I would write about the breakup, right? And so
Right,
it was like
right.
the anticipation and the breakup. Not very much about like how it feels to be in a great relationship, probably because I didn't have that many of them.
Just
But
just on that, do you think there's a
it was
reason
like,
why you didn't do that? Like, why would it
I
be the
said to
aftermath
somebody
rather than in the
once,
moment?
Yeah, because in the moment I was not trying to record. I was trying to sort of like soak
Enjoy.
up, and I wasn't trying to figure anything out, right? Like I usually write to figure something out, right? To get
Right.
my, why do I feel this way? Do I really like this person? You know, or
Okay. Okay.
or
Okay.
like, why was I with that person? Like, what was I thinking? Like it was always like this like forward looking, and then this thing. It's only really been in recent years that I've actually gained presence. And I write a lot more about the moment and the truth and everything else like
Okay.
that. But I remember saying to somebody, because I wrote lots of favorable songs for people, and I would write them love songs and I would send them to them, and I would sing them at parties that they were at and be like, I don't wonder if they know it's about them. I mean, like really everything I did was through my songs. And I remember I wrote some unfavorable songs about people starting around like 2000-ish, and I got some slack, from the people. Like,
So you actually sent
if
them
you
to
go
them.
out and sing this at the party, they're going to know exactly who you're talking about.
Oh.
Well, they couldn't help but hear it, because if they knew me and they knew where I was, and I've always been singing or speaking or rhyming or writing everything that in my life all the time, right? So this one,
Okay.
I just remember this one or several people going, well, I didn't want to break up with you because I knew if I broke up with you, you were going to just like really turn me into a really like sad song, right? And I didn't want to I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to be like your muse of angst or sorrow. Like I'd much rather be your muse of love and possibility. And it's like when your words basically turn in the other direction, they're really cutting, they're really harsh.
I was just saying, maybe he gave
And
Taylor Swift all
and
her
I remember
ideas.
sitting for like a moment, maybe. Like, but I remember thinking for a moment and then not feeling bad about that at all. And what I said was, well, then you should have acted different because I'm only writing what actually happened. So, like, had you not cheated on me, had you not messed with my best friend, had you not done these things, they wouldn't be in a song, right? So, you know, I pre-warned people after that, like in the mid 2000s, like I take everything from life and I turn it into art. So be careful what you represent, because it will show up somewhere, right? So if you want to be seen in your best light, bring your best self.
That's a great quote. That's a really good
Right?
quote. Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess that was like, so that's why it is really attached to every pivotal moment, because every pivotal moment I've written about and I've sung about it to somebody. So there isn't a pivotal moment in my life that didn't or doesn't have a song attached to it.
So do you have the most
My
recent
own song,
example of where you linked that a certain emotion to a song, either one you wrote or one you heard?
Um, let's see. The one I was making yesterday, and that's what I do when I'm by myself, is I just jump up and down around the house, and like I think of something I've seen or read, and then I just start making lyrics. But I will share something that actually it's on Clapper. So
Okay.
if anyone sees this, it's actually on Clapper. But one of my more recent rhymes is about truth. But the one I was making yesterday, which isn't formed yet, it's kind of jumpy, and it's just about being a seed. It's like, yeah, ask me what I am a seed. Yeah, ask me what I am a seed. And I was just jumping, like really just hyping myself up. Like it was so great. Like I was like, yeah, ask me what I'm a seed. Like I was just like running around, and I was like, and I've been planted in this reality to show you what you can grow through, everything you thought you knew. And I just like started going, just talking about how the past can become a hindrance if you're trying to grow with like only the knowledge that you've accumulated up to now, and you're not open to to the sunlight or to the rain, and then it morphed into some sort of storm thing. I haven't written any of it down, but it morphed into some storm thing. And then it was like you're holding, it got real quiet, and it was like you're holding to your past. You're holding to your past like a raft in the ocean of emotion, but flotation device offers no protection. You're at the will of the waves, the will of the whales. No anchor, no compass, no oars, no sails. you know, like, you know, and like I'm showing up with a boat, and you got a choice. Like you could jump on and find truth, or you could just keep clinging to your story and jumping all around, it was like super visual, and it was like about a whole hour of just all these images and symbolism coming up, and that's how they start. And then maybe in like 2 or 3 weeks it'll be a piece, right? Because like I'll remember a little bit of it and I'll forget most of it, and I'll drive, and then I'll redo all the lines I remember, and then I'll start filling in the gaps, and then like another couple of days go by and the same thing will happen, and then eventually it's like the lines that stayed become the thing.
So is this all spoken
Right.
word?
But so some of it is,
Uh-huh.
and recently I think that's where I've kind of went full circle, because I discovered independent rap online like a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like independent rural rap, independent Christian rap, independent rap from other countries, independent rap that was mixing all sorts of genres of music. So I've had this sort of renewal of hip hop in my system, because it was my first love, and for a long time I really just sang songs. So I will sing a song for you. I'll sing a song for you, and I'll do a rap for you. But it's always the
Awesome.
same. Now that I'm looking at it across a lifetime, like that. Now that I'm looking at it across a lifetime, it's always the same thing. It always comes back to presence. It always comes back to love. It always comes back to being in the moment. You know, it always comes back to, you know, sharing all the edges, and sharing all the little details and things, expression, freedom, everything music is made to be, it's just like
All the, all,
it's always the same. It's like dogs, right? Like I dog sit, and if you look into a dog's eyes, like no matter what dog it is, there's this unconditional depth of, it's like a vibration that all dogs have, and I feel like there's a vibration that all music has. Like it doesn't matter what music it is. Like you could be a 2-year-old banging on a pot, or you could be playing a flute in a mountain, or you could be, I don't know, whistling in a goat's ear, but the vibration, like when you really bring it down to the seed of music, it's creation energy, and it's presence, right? So of course I'm 100% attached to it. But I'll sing something.
Brilliant. Take it away.
And I've written songs in every genre, so um I could say, okay, I'll sing. Oh, what do you want? Like I mean, like I have
It's your
let's see.
show, whatever you'd
Want
like to
something
share.
that's like a love song? Okay, I'll do this one, because I think this one everybody likes. It's called Anthem anyways, because it's one of those like rah anthem songs,
Okay,
But
brilliant.
okay. All right. Okay. Okay. I mean everything I say, mostly when I say it, 'cause I reserve the right to change my mind. So when I say, hey, beautiful, I'd like to share some space with you. I mean, right here, right now, not sometime. 'Cause sometime takes forever. And sometime means I need to decide. And if you're not feeling what I'm feeling, maybe it's better I see you around sometime. 'Cause right here, right now, you're amazing me, driving me crazy with those eyes, and I relate to everything you say. And I got butterflies and they're fluttering up and down my thighs to remind me it's not often that I feel this way. And when we kiss, it's like coming home when I've been gone way too long. It makes me wanna strip you of your armor naked and then wrap you in my song. And then it keeps going.
Wow.
But
That's awesome.
that's
I mean,
like that's like the beginning of that one. And it just goes on and it talks about,
I mean,
like make up your mind, right? Like I'm here and I'm going.
well, everyone that will listen to us will first marvel at it, but then for me, I was going, okay, I can hear strong guitar chords in the background, electric guitar, some sort of power beat going on, and there were various key changes and structures that I heard throughout there as well, so it really tied in with everything. Apologies, by the way, if anyone in the last few minutes has heard an ice cream van style sound. I've got my window open, and every so often this bloody ice cream van keeps driving by. Just actually coincidentally when Joey was going through her spoken word and her singing, and like, okay, this is, I don't know whether the ice cream van is trying to mix in the tune or something, but apologies if that's put anyone off. He's buggered off now, hopefully. So, but no, Joey, thank you for sharing that. That was really, really powerful. When was that something you wrote recently? You were saying that was the last piece you're working on?
No, that's actually something I wrote in 2000.
Oh, okay.
And I wrote it, I ran away to San Francisco to follow my heart, or to run away from my heart, actually, because that was the song that I wrote before I left for San Francisco. And that's what I was writing about. Like, I was like, look, like, I'm here and I'm willing to stay. And like everything about you is freaking incredible right now. But you have tonight, basically, because I'm getting on a freaking bus tomorrow if you don't if you
So it's
can't
like an
meet me
ultimatum
here.
to San
I was just
Francisco.
like, yeah, it was just like I wasn't even in San Francisco. I was in New Mexico, and I was like,
Oh,
I
right,
could
right.
go to San Francisco and find out figure out myself, right? Or I can stay here and figure out myself basically through this, right? Like with you.
You got
But
one night to decide.
I had met this person, and they just sort of, well, I mean, they had more than one night to decide, but it was definitely like leading up to it. And then I wrote about 5 songs in those 2 weeks, and
Wow.
they were all just songs that no matter how old I get, I can still go back to, because they're just like levels of self-discovery, right? It's like it's like, I'm here, I'm ready. I had a woman sit down with me, my friend Elizabeth, and she gave me that line in a real conversation the night before I wrote it. Like, I was saying, I really like this person, but I'm dating this person, but now I'm all confused because I don't understand myself and who I am and who am I? And I was like 28, so it made sense. But I was like, I don't know. And she said, you always have the right to change your mind. So
100%.
follow your heart, and if it doesn't work, go in a different direction. But don't also be don't also be quiet about it, because you don't want any what ifs. If you leave the state and go do this other thing, like, you don't want any what ifs. So you have to be clear that this is a choice that you're giving someone. And so, like, I actually called, like, I didn't really give them the song. I wrote it about this scenario, but I called the person and I was like, look, I like you. You're amazing. you're like anything, like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I need more of this experience. And if it's not going to be with you, I'm jumping on a train to go find it somewhere else. So, like, here or not here, like, we're either going to do this or I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to just go have to find someone else to do this with. And so then I ended up in San Francisco. And oddly enough, that person ended up dating one of my best friends. And that best friend is the reason I'm even house sitting the house I'm sitting in today.
Well, there you go. Comes all back to itself, doesn't it?
That's how connected it still is to my, that's how connected it is to my life. But then I also write like country song. So a recent country song I wrote that I'd love to share is, I didn't finish this one either. I started it in a car and it's still sort of like hanging, it's not really done. But I was driving back to New Mexico, which is another common theme of my life. I'm moving back to New Mexico soon. It's in a lot of my songs. And it's, I stopped at the 7-Eleven on the Texas 707, just outside of Abilene. I had 200 miles to go to the border of New Mexico. I was sipping on my coffee and living the dream. They say, mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. And I'm sure she never saw me that way. Oh, but my mom, she was an urban kind of outlaw. And I've been following her footsteps this whole way. And I'm on my way. I'm on my way to that high desert, that harsh lover, that big old sky on that deep red clay. And then it just goes on about Texas for a little while. But
I like that. It's a very evocative
like
scene there. Yeah. You can get the sort of country and west vibe there. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I do sing, but my love lately has been rap. So that's where I'm heading with this. And I wrote a bunch of raps about presence when presence manifested. Okay. And I have that on my Clapper too. Clapper's really the only place I've actually shared a lot of these things. Maybe Facebook. But this one is my favorite because it's about truth. And
right, okay.
I kind of want to do the whole thing, but it's kind of long. I don't know how much time we have left.
It's your show. Go for it.
I'm trying to think if I could just do the middle of it. This is really exciting too. Thank you so much. This is like super fun. All right. So anyway, this song basically, like, I almost feel like I had a lot of part in it. But I was driving and I was in New Mexico again. New Mexico has a lot to do with like my creativity. So I'm driving and I'm in New Mexico and all of a sudden this line just pops out of my head. And the line is, you stepped on my throat. You thought I wasn't a lion. So I devoured your ass, and now you're sitting there crying because I defended myself against your outright attack. Maybe next time you'll think twice and stay the fuck back. I got an army of angels, and I'm flanked by my pride. I got a rogue wolf in the back and love on my side. This is a race you can't win with division and hate. I've already won and you're still back at the gate. Cause what you're packing is so heavy and it's holding you down. But I'm as light as light and sacred as sound. Mind open to the cosmos, feet on the ground. Cause I know that there is power in aligning with source. My second ride is a macabre, you've a cart with no horse. I'll keeping my course. I hope you keep this advice. I'll put your bloody boot up on my mantle if you need to think thrice. I'm not an army of one, and we won't quit till we're done. To all the hates on the run, I must admit this is fun because I like bringing death to your illusion. I like shining light through your confusion. You generalize me, size me up with your eyes. You missed half the attack, and then you acted surprised as you fell on your back and looked up at the sky and cried, why? How did I get here? You got here through hate and fear. You got here by playing it small. You got here by thinking you knew that you knew it all. But you missed the cliff of the fall. And now that you're down on your knees, you're seeing up through it all clearly. But that's the beauty of perception shifting. It's the beauty of the veil as it's lifting. It's the beauty of hindsight. You get to play it again and again and again till you get it right. Apply it to your next fight, but not this one. I'm not an army of one, and we won't quit till we're done. To all the hates on the run, I must admit this is fun, and I've been sitting where you're sitting. I too thought I was a victim. I could now see my way out of the system. I fought truth, but she fights back. She's got a 1-2 punch and a wicked attack. I fell flat on my ass. Everything faded to black, but when I woke, see, I woke for reals, and I just can't explain to you how that feels. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. You have to live to die and die to live freely. So believe me, what I'm saying is true. The only way out is through. We have so much love for you. There's nothing left for you to do. You tempted truth twice, and we can't let it slide. I'm gonna have to knock you out, and we'll see you on the other side. We'll see you on the other side. You stepped on my throat, you thought I wasn't a lion. And we'll see you on the other side. You thought I wasn't a lion? We'll see you on the other side, 'cause I'm a lion.
Whoa. Okay, if listeners aren't like, you know, clapping and cheering and doing all this kind of thing, you probably need to listen to that again. And that came from one line. One line you in the car. The first few words, and that was it.
You stepped on my throat.
Whoa. And that was it.
Yeah, like you stepped on my throat, you thought I wasn't a lion. And I was like, why did I even, like, it made no sense. And everyone I sang it to for the next, like, 3 days while I wrote the whole song, I got up every day and that's all I did. I got up every day and I just kept doing whatever I remembered and adding a line, doing whatever I remembered and adding a line. And it wasn't until the end of the song that it even made sense. Like, I was like, what? You know, but it was like, who did this to you, Joey? Like, who did this? Who tried to? And I was like, and I sat there and I still really just think it's just about a lifetime of self-expression. Like, it's just like, whoever thought that they could take the truth out of my story is just mistaken. And my mom, and I think the 3 times comes back to my mother, because my mother taught me the best lesson in life, which is you always give somebody a second chance.
Right.
Like, always. Like, my mother always gives somebody a second chance, right? But my mother also gave a second chance with 2 consequences. Mm-hmm. And that was the trick to her keeping me and everyone else in her life, I think, in line for their whole life, right? Because what she would do is she would say, okay, first mistake, you didn't know, right? Like, you didn't know. Happen. So I'm gonna let you, yeah, it could happen. You had no information. You didn't understand what was going on. So, like, well, we're going to forgive that one, you know? Okay, so now that you know, right? Like, let me explain to you, if you do this again, this is what's going to happen, right? And so she would give a consequence that was, like, harsh, but not deadly, right?
Right.
Like a doable consequence. And then she'd say, and you only really have, you know, if you are to do it, this is what's going to happen. And you know what? I'm your mother, so even if you did it again, I would probably forgive you. Because she would assume that I was going to do it again, right? Like, she would know, right? Like, I'm a kid, I'm going to probably do it again. So she would say, and if you did it again, I'd probably forgive you. Almost begging me, right, to do it again. And then she would say, but if you do it a 3rd time, she would tell me on the first time, if you do it a 3rd time, this is the dire consequence that's going to happen, right? And inevitably, I would mess up and do it the second time. And that first consequence would be boom, right? And she instilled this truth that if that first consequence came as fast as it was said to do, you know, like that third consequence was real and true as well. And so I never did anything a third time, right? So I think the part of the song where it's like you stepped to truth twice and we can't let it slide, you know? So we're gonna have to knock you out and we'll see you on the other side, right? It's like I really in the song you only really have two times before you get knocked out, right? It's like you have two times, you get knocked out, and then you see the truth, right? It's like because you don't really want to go to that third time. Like, and I think even in my life, I've seen that if you try to go against truth, the truth of anything, the truth of a relationship, the truth of anything, it's usually on the third time that there's like irreparable damage, right?
Yeah.
But the second time, you get the lesson, right? The first time you don't know. The second time, you really have a chance to get the lesson.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have somebody on your side that when you're walking towards that third time, they knock you out and give you some
Well,
some reality,
indeed,
right?
the whole reasoning there that comes from a place I think of integrity, and just to sidestep into the coaching space a little bit a second. I guess what you're talking about is the idea that you can experience something three times, and we always make mistakes. We do tend to do them more often than we want. We fuck up more often than we want to. First time, as you said, yeah, we could be simply practicing like we're always doing, not be fully aware of, I don't know, the way to do it and that kind of thing. With that experience and knowledge in us, then, if it's done a second time, then I guess that's where we go, okay, that's an opportunity. As you said, it's a chance to go, okay, what questions can I ask about what's going on? Am I repeating what I did the first time? Am I taking liberties with this new opportunity or chance? And if it's a third time, then that's where we could be kidding ourselves. Like if it's a repeated action or behaviour, which is okay, because we always do that, but then those are always the chances and opportunities for us to go, what's actually going on here? So it could be simple things like, I've seen the phrase self-sabotage used a lot in spaces where like it's the reason or excuse given that why you're not achieving something. Oh, because I self-sabotaged. Or you could view it as like, well, do I actually want the thing that I say I'm saying I want to? Common example is like, losing weight or going to the gym. Do I really want that? Or am I just saying it because everybody else seems to be doing it or someone close to me said so? So it's always, I think, an opportunity. But the third time we do it, it's like, well, if somebody else were to do that, for example, like, breach our boundaries. At the moment we've got things in us like preset patterns like people pleasing, perfectionism. We're always told it's a virtue to put other people first, all this kind of thing. But the more we do that, we feel that, like, okay, maybe some people are taking liberties or other people aren't thinking like we do. But then we just keep quiet about it. We don't say anything. It's not the nice thing to do. It's not polite. So we bite our tongue until eventually we burst out in rage because we can't keep the anger held in any longer, or annoyance, or whatever emotion that you think is unacceptable out loud. But when we say, actually, as you so well put it in your rhyme, that like, look, third time I'm going to have to knock you out and, see you on the other side. It's about, to me, then that's essentially another interpretation of boundaries. Boundaries are hard to first set, to communicate so that people are aware of like, look, this is a boundary here, and then actually defend them. Not to go, here's my boundary, and people go, yeah, fuck that. Because they'll then carry on with what they expect from you previously. And when you don't reply with that, then they get confused going, what's going on? Because now their needs aren't being met through you. So I know a bit of a diversion there, but I think that that's the idea that came through in the lyrics
I think that's great. And I think that on the level of the song at first, like that's what I was trying to answer for people. Like I was like, I don't understand, because I didn't understand why I wrote it, right? And people would say, who did that to you? Who tried to step on your throat? And I was like, well, it's not really, but it has been, right? Like when I look back at my life, I'm like, oh yeah, there's been at least more more than one occasion where people really try to actively, from an external standpoint, squish my truth, right? And I have to actually fight for it. So there's like that superficial but yet deep level. But then I think that there's something I still don't understand about it, right? Like I think like on like a whole of humanity, right? Like I feel like I'm talking for truth, right? And so what were the other two times in say humanity that truth really showed up and we didn't listen, right? And maybe and maybe it's just getting a little bit stronger tactic now. Like it's like, hey, truth is like, sorry, like, and then also I was like, well, what about, we're gonna have to knock you out and see you on the other side, right? So it's like we're gonna have to put you basically into your subconscious, right, to bring you to the other side, right? It's like we gave you the conscious choice, you didn't do it. Right?
Or he's a more
So let's
severe
go into
clue
the
to you,
dark. Like let's knock you out, right? And then like you're gonna wake up new. Like you're gonna wake up into truth, right? Because we're gonna kind of go into that. So there's like all these things that I'm still trying to like uncode from it too. So it's really interesting to me to hear like what other people think about it. Like if they think, oh, it's about me and it's my truth, or am I speaking for truth? And who's my army? And who's the rogue wolf? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I got a rogue wolf on my side, right? Like I got a rogue wolf in my, I'm like, who are, like, I don't even know really who all the pieces in this story are. Like, who's the rogue wolf? I know I come with an army, I feel like I've been accumulating them in the coaching space and in the present space and in the transformation space and in the shadow space. Like, I feel like I wrote this almost 3 years ago now, and it's been 3 years in sort of like that turning into my reality, right? So my writing lately has been more premonition. It's like I write and then it happens instead of
Right.
it happened and so I write about it, right? Which is also a different alignment with presence. So that's all, that goes into that, and I can go off on tangents on that too. But anyway, this was so great. I'm so glad, just for the people watching. I was supposed to do this yesterday and I completely and thought it was the 25th and it was supposed to be the 21st. And the first thing I said before we started recording was, I'm so glad I missed it because I didn't overthink it. Like if I knew that this conversation was happening yesterday, this wouldn't have been the conversation that we had, because I would have been like, what am I going to say? Did I look for a playlist? Oh my God. This thing. Today I had an hour and a half to do about 10 chores that I put off yesterday, and sit at a phone. And so it really has been just like, I didn't realize how excited I was to talk about songs and music and meaning and life and depth and shadows. And I could talk to you for so many more hours. And since you hear the music behind it, you asked me earlier, no, I don't have a band. I've never had music put to any of my songs. Wow. Except one. And I can put music to one of my songs. And every time I sing them, I'm just like waiting for somebody to just be like, I heard this music behind it. Can we put it together? Because all of my lyrics have actually no music. And besides one or two songs in a lifetime of writing, I have very rarely ever heard my words over music. And it makes me I'm going to cry. Like, it makes me so excited and so sad at the same time.
Well,
because they are my life and they don't have any music.
I might be able to help you there. Now, if that's not a cliffhanger to end the episode, I don't know. But Joie, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And in remark to what you just said now about this is meant to be... So this is Tuesday afternoon when we're recording this. It's meant to be a Monday night. It's more to keep in the schedule that I've got. To be honest, it doesn't matter. We've caught the time. We've got this in the can now. but to go back on the point about, you know, you thinking, okay, what am I going to talk about? Have I got a playlist ready on just being corner structured? That's half the point of the show. There is no structure. Yes, you know, before I start the recording on this, we just have a quick, you know, minute set up just to see what's going to go on. But I say, look, I have prompts to push the conversation along if we need to, but I'm not going to sit there like a exam or an interview going question 1, question 2. It's more about, okay, if you've got stories, thoughts, ideas, expressions, whatever you want to share about music and your life, that's exactly what it's for. So I'm really glad that you made the use of this platform to share all your wonderful stories and your profound abilities. You know, and thank you so much for sharing your singing, your rapping, your thoughts, your spoken word. I know that the people watching and listening to this are going to be thrilled by the episode and probably want more. So here's another return guest that I'm sure to have back on the show soon. Joie, thank you once again for being a guest on Soundtrack of Your Life.
Thank you.
So that was the brilliant Joie Costa. I'm sure you'll agree it was a brilliant hour to listen or watch. If you want to find out more about Joie, you can reach out to her and find her stuff on her website, which is given in the description or the links below. And also there you will find her soundtrack that she's kindly shared with us to get you inspired with some music or tracks that mean a lot to her in her life. Now, if you want to be a guest on the show, feel free to sign up using the link again in the description or links wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you want to catch previous episodes, you can do on my channel on YouTube, Inner Peace Walker TV, and on all major podcast platforms. Till the next show, feel supersonic. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. Please do like and comment with your thoughts below, subscribe to the channel, and sign up to be on the show. Feel supersonic.